After you served in the temple, then you were called to direct church hosting. And you've been there a long time.
6 years.
6 years, just completed that assignment. And you've met with people who are famous from all over the world. You've met with dignitaries and statesmen and educators, and I imagine the list, I don't know if you even know how many people you've hosted.
Over those 6 years, we would typically host anywhere from 600 to 700 people, and from 80 to 100 countries every year. And there is no country in the world that I know of that we have not hosted people from, and it's been like an advanced degree education with all of it, because they've been religious leaders, political leaders, business leaders, educational leaders from all walks of life. It's been a miraculous experience for us.
Given the variety, is there one impression that seemed to stay with them and that they would comment on about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Great question, Heidi. Some never even have heard of our church, interestingly enough, which is surprising to some members in the church. Some come with misconceptions about the church, misunderstandings about the church. All those thousands of people we've hosted over those years, we've never had one leave that hasn't left with positive feelings and expressions about the church and what the church does. Even those that we don't agree on doctrine, but what the church does in helping people and blessing people worldwide. Not one person, even those that are different religious viewpoints.
Isn't that remarkable? Are there any in particular, any individuals that you might share with us some experiences?
There's one, I have to share this before we finish this interview. This happened just within the last year. We hosted a large group from Nigeria. They were religious leaders. Half of them were Muslim, half of them were Christians. And we first of all hosted them to visit the Tabernacle Choir broadcast Sunday morning and then on a tour after. But they asked so many questions about our doctrine and our organization of the church. I couldn't answer them all before they had to leave for their next appointment. The next day they were going down to Brigham Young University to meet with the religion department professors. And we usually don't ride down with people. In fact, it's the only time we ever had. But because they asked so many questions, I said I would ride down on the bus with them and hope to answer the rest of their questions, which I tried to do. Coming back home, one of the Pentecostal ministers was so expressive in gratitude for the church and all they do and the experience he'd had in the few days we'd spent here with him. He said, Elder Banks, he said, I just brought a little gift for you and your wife, but it's back in my hotel room at they were staying at the Little America Hotel. And I said, well, my car's at the Little America Hotel. We can wait in the lobby for you and you can go to your room if you'd like. Oh, thank you, I want to do that. This was at 5:30 in the afternoon. That lobby was full of people. So he went up to the room and brought down this little trinket. It didn't amount to much, but it was the thought behind it, which we appreciated. We thanked him for it. Bid him goodbye, and he said, can I just ask one favor of you as you leave, Elder Banks? And I said, of course. He said, would you be sure and pray for me? I said, I'll be happy to pray for you. He said, thank you. With that, he dropped on his knees in the middle of the lobby of the hotel, and I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I dropped on my knees. She didn't know what to do. She dropped on her knees. So there's three of us in the lobby of the Little America Hotel with all these people looking around at us. What is going on here? It's the shortest prayer and blessing I ever gave to anyone in my life. He thanked me, and I jumped up, and he jumped up, and we both helped her get up off the floor, and all these people looking at us, and by this time he was calling us Mama and Papa. We've just never had an experience like that, and he said, can I keep in touch with you when I get back home? We said, sure, thinking nothing would ever happen. And he called a couple of days later. He's in New York. He said, I'm just leaving to go back to Nigeria, and thank you again for everything. Your church is wonderful, and so forth. And he said, I'd like to keep in touch. We said, okay, thinking it would never happen. And about a week later, our phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I get out of bed and go to the phone. Papa, how are you? This is so-and-so. And I said, do you have any idea what time it is? And he said, oh, I forgot there's a time change, isn't there?
Oh, my.
I said, please call another time. And so he said, okay. And so a week later, it rang at 2:30. And I said, it's your turn, honey. So whenever he calls at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. But that's an experience I've never had before, is in the middle of a lobby of a hotel to give a blessing to someone. But there's been wonderful experiences different than that. But that is also a calling that we shall be eternally grateful for. And so many have invited us to come and meet in their country. In fact, just a couple of months ago, we hosted the head of state of Samoa, his wife, and entourage. And we spent 8.5 days with him, hosting him.
Wow.
And as we finished, they were so gracious, they were so kind.
You really develop a friendship.
I'll bet you do.
We invited him to come back again, he and his wife. He said, we'd love to, Elder Banks, but only under one condition. I said, what's that? And he said, that you and your wife come and visit us in Samoa, stay in our presidential suites and let us host you, then we'll come back, but if you don't, we won't. So we think maybe we'll go over and visit them.
Nice.
And then the last one I share with you, just within the last month and a half, we just hosted Nikita Khrushchev's son.
Whoa.
And he looks just like his father, but a sweeter, more delightful man and wife to be around you could never be around.
Lovely.
They were just delightful. And he lives in America now, and he's an American citizen, and he teaches at Brown University in Rhode Island and has his permanent home there, has been teaching there for 26, 27 years. And I'm just hitting on the highlights of some of the interesting people we've hosted.
But there is one thing that many of them ask about, and is how do you get the people to volunteer? Everywhere they go, they see all the volunteers.
All the volunteers.
So we can't get our people to do that.
They say, how do you do that?
And what's your response?
I say it starts when they're very young. Our children always would come home from school and they'd see all these nice things out on the counter, and they say, oh, what are we having? And I say, well, it isn't for us. We're taking dinner in to someone. Or we'd spend family home evening, maybe preparing someone's yard for a garden. We just, you just volunteer and do things for other families.
But the last thing I share with you is paying a tribute to her again and how she even affected these people. We were hoping a group down at BYU one time. They were from Pakistan and Afghanistan, right on the border. They spoke Farsi, the Farsi language. And they were dressed in their typical costumes in the area they were from and didn't speak very good English, but they spoke English. And as we finished the tour, they thanked me for all the time spent with them, and they turned to my wife and they said, it's been wonderful to meet you, Mother Teresa. We hope we'll see you again someday. That's what they thought of her. So it was
Never been called that before.
So it's been a wonderful time and wonderful to be in service of the Lord and do whatever they want us to do.
How would you communicate with people that spoke Farsi and didn't speak
Well,
much
anyone
English?
that comes here that doesn't speak the language, the State Department it sends a translator with them.
Oh, okay.
They always have a translator with them.
And a lot of these visitors are sent by the State Department to...
There's an organization here in Utah called Utah Council for Citizen Diplomacy. The acronym is UCCD. It's a nonprofit organization. There's 94 of those around the United States in major cities. They work in conjunction with the State Department in Washington, D.C., who invite people from international countries to come in America and have an experience about America. These different organizations then compete to get them to their state to visit, because according to how many people they get budget from the State Department to help them because they're nonprofit organizations. And the Utah organization is one of the most prolific and effective ones, and that's where a lot of our visitors come from.
Interesting.
And when any of those visitors come, the State Department always sends either translators with them or facilitators with them to be wherever they go.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Well, now, just to follow up on that, you take them in to see the president of the church often.
It depends
How does that work?
It depends on who they are, Heidi. Everyone would love to meet the first presidency.
Sure.
They would never have time to do anything. But if they are ambassador level or higher and the first presidency is available, then we've been able to take them in and introduce them to the first presidency and sit in the meetings with them, which is also just a great blessing to us to be able to sit in the presence of the first presidency in those meetings. Yeah. But they have to be of that stature, or the first presidency would never get anything done. But we take them, sometimes we'll have them meet with different members of the 12 or the 70, or different department heads, or the presiding bishopric, or the Relief Society, or Young Women or Primary Presidency. But depending on how much time they have, we will take them to see the Humanitarian Center, Welfare Square, Temple Square, Family History Library, Church Museum, Church History Museum, BYU, the Missionary Training Center, this is the place. It just depends on how much time they have available where we take to see them. And then we usually always host them to either a lunch or a dinner also. And as I mentioned before, they have never ever left not feeling a positive feeling and complimenting the church for what they do, even religious leaders of other faiths.
Isn't that nice? And there is a spirit on the temple block and on the church administration block that I think people feel when they come. Do they ever comment on how things feel?
The thing
here?
they comment most on Temple Square is when you talk about the temple and the principle of eternal marriage. It's new to them, and families being sealed together. They want to know more about it. And there are probably more questions asked about that on Temple Square than anything else. Is a principle that when you talk to them about what temples are for and the principle of being married and sealed for time and all eternity and families being together and the importance of families in the church, that intrigues them.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll say, what is this feeling that I feel?
It's been a wonderful time in our life, and one we'll cherish all the days of our life as well.